Good. Kaiser?
Okay, so we are on Beis Amud Aleph still. We began in the middle of the page last week, or we got to the middle of the page last week, where it says Hamekane. The Gemorah is referring to the language with which the Mishnah begins. What does the Mishnah say? The language with which the Mishnah begins is Hamekane liishto, as if to say we're talking about someone who gave his wife this warning. But remember, kinui is the warning that a husband gives to his wife if he suspects her of committing adultery. Right? He gives her a warning that's called a kinui. We'll learn about why he gives her the kinui, but he gives her this kinui, he gives her this warning, and the language of the Mishnah seems to imply that it was doesn't seem to imply negative, but it seems to imply that it was already done, right? It was already done. In other words, the Mishnah could have started simply with the words Rabbi Eliezer Omer. Rabbi Eliezer says, Mekana la al pishnayim. The fact that it begins with Hamekana liishto, says the Gemara, seems to imply something that already took place, meaning that the Mishnah is starting not from a place of what should you do, but the Mishnah is starting from a place of this is what I did. Right, this is what happened. Okay. So what is that? Why would we be concerned about that? So says the Gemara, Hamekana di'eved in lichatchila lo. The implication of this Mishnah, at least according to what the Gemara is saying now, is that lichatchila, you are not supposed to warn your wife, right? That this is only what the Mishnah is discussing, is only a situation where you went ahead and warned her. But lichatchila, optimally, you are not supposed to warn your wife. What do you mean you're not supposed to warn your wife? Why are you not supposed to warn your wife? Right? Kasavar, because the Tana of our Mishnah, Kasavar Tana Didan, the Tana of our Mishnah holds, Asur likanos. It is prohibited to warn your wife. It's prohibited to warn your wife.
Likanos is not to be jealous?
Right. It is a term connoting jealousy. It's also a term connoting anger, right? So we'll see actually those two are interrelated. But the way we're understanding it now is warning your wife. It's the term which the Torah uses for warning your wife not to be secluded with Mr. So-and-so. Okay, so the Gemara seems to be saying that the Tana of the Mishnah is of the opinion that it is asur, it is prohibited to warn your wife. It's prohibited to be mekana her. That's a very strange position. What do you mean? It's prohibited to be mekana her. So I want you to jump ahead in the Gemara. We're going to go to Beis Amud Beis. But don't worry, we're going to come back. Beis Amud Beis at the bottom of the page, at the very bottom of the page. Bless you. Okay. So we're on Beis Amud Beis. 2B5. In the English, we're on the left column. Right? The English is on the left column. And obviously in the Hebrew, we're going to be where the gray bar is at the bottom of the page. Amar Rabbi Chanina. You see it? Mm-hmm. Right? Amar Rabbi Chanina. Everybody have it? If you don't have it, ask the person next to you. Right? Amar Rabbi Chanina. You got it? Amar Rabbi Chanina. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 lines up from the bottom of the page. Right? Amar Rabbi Chanina, Misura, who came from Surah. Lo lema ini shleisase. A man should not say to his wife, Aramaic, a man should not say to his wife, Bizman hazeh, in our generation, meaning when there's no Beis Hamikdash, Lo tisteri bahadi ploni. Don't be secluded with Mr. So-and-so. You should not say that to your wife. That's what the Gemara is saying. In the name of Rabbi Chanina, you should not say that to your wife. Why? Because Dilma, perhaps, Kaimale, we hold Kirebi Yossi Berebi Yehuda. Perhaps we hold like the position of Rabbi Yossi Berebi Yehuda. The Amar, what did Rabbi Yossi Berebi Yehuda say? Kinui al pi atzmo umistera, right? That that kinui, that giving this warning to your wife is sufficient if you are the only one who knows it. In other words, generally, in order to establish something as reality in halacha, you need two witnesses.
Otherwise, you're always the last
Two
one
witnesses
to find
or one. We're going to see. We're going to see it better. Right? Two witnesses or one, and here Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda holds. Not only is one witness sufficient, but even if that witness happens to be you, the husband who told your wife not to be secluded with Mr. So-and-so, we got to come up with a name for this Mr. So-and-so guy. What? Okay, Plony, right?
John Doe.
That even if you were the one who told your wife not to be secluded with Mr. Plony, that could still be a problem, because according to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, that would still require you to take your wife to the Beis HaMikdash and to have her drink these bitter waters. And guess what? There's no Beis HaMikdash today. So if you say to your wife, I don't want to see you secluded with Mr. Plony, and then she's secluded with Mr. Plony, and there are two witnesses who see her secluded with Mr. Plony, guess what?
Well, how does anybody know other than you? You're the only one.
Finish yourself.
No, but there's two other Plonis.
No. According to Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda, if there are two witnesses who saw her secluded with Mr. Plony,
Right.
and you were the one, you told her,
You had warned her, right.
nobody else heard you, but you warned her not to be secluded with Mr. Plony,
She's forbidden.
and now two witnesses saw her secluded with Mr. Plony. They don't know that you told her not to be with Mr. Plony. They just saw her with Mr. Plony. So then she becomes prohibited to you forever. Because you have to divorce her.
Can't go through?
You have to divorce her. Why do you have to divorce her? You have to divorce her because there's no way of clarifying the situation without a Beis
Remarry her?
HaMikdash. Right? There's no way of clarifying the situation without a Beis HaMikdash. No, you can't remarry her. No way of clarifying the situation without a Beis HaMikdash. Because what happened in the Beis HaMikdash, we're going to learn. It's what we're learning. This whole process of Sotah, which was supernatural. That happened only because there was a Beis HaMikdash in which it happened. If there is no Beis HaMikdash, then there's no way
To prove her innocent.
to prove her innocent or guilty. So since there's no way to prove her innocent or guilty, we have to assume
What if
that
she
she was
confessed? What if she
guilty.
can confess?
We have to assume that she
So
was
there's no
guilty.
Sekila?
We have to assume that she was guilty.
Right.
And if she's guilty, you have to divorce her.
There's no stone.
If she confesses,
Right.
if she say, yes, I had
Yeah,
a
the
relationship
Beis HaMikdash is in
with
existence,
Mr.
right.
Plony, what happens? We divorce her.
But if she confesses,
You divorce her, and you can't remarry her.
but if she confesses and there's not, and there are.
Hold on, wait a second.
There's no
Okay.
punishment.
You can't remarry her because she is considered forbidden to you, right? Forever.
Even with the Beis HaMikdash.
No,
I'm
but
going back, no, I'm
This
going
is
back
not
to the
Beis
Beis
HaMikdash.
HaMikdash. You accuse
In the
her
Beis HaMikdash, you accuse
They
her.
take her to the Beis HaMikdash, they go through that whole humiliation process, all of which is the goal
And-
to get her to admit it.
And she doesn't admit it.
But she does confess it.
Oh, you're
The
saying
Beis
that she
HaMikdash.
does?
She does, and then Beis HaMikdash,
Okay, so what happens? So now you divorce her.
You
Over.
have to.
Finished. Yeah.
And you can't remarry.
She said that
So then
she.
you can't remarry.
You can't remarry her. You can marry someone
Well, I
else.
understand.
Right.
Okay, fine.
Where you
Then
can't
you couldn't
remarry
remarry her
her
without a
because
Beis HaMikdash.
she made herself prohibited to you by saying, "Hey, I slept with Plony." Now, Marcos is going to say, "Well, why don't we just kill her?" You know,
there's
right?
no Sekila.
Right.
Right?
Right. Why don't we just kill her? Because what's the punishment for adultery?
Right.
Punishment for adultery is stoning,
But you have to
right?
have witnesses.
So why don't we just kill her? So the answer is because there were no witnesses to the actual act of adultery. She confessed. You can't kill a person because a person confesses to something. I can be punished. Let's say I confess that I stole something, right? So I can be held accountable for that. I can't be killed if I make a confession about something. There needs to be two witnesses in order for that to happen. But if she confesses, she makes herself prohibited to me. And if she makes herself prohibited to me, that's an everlasting prohibition. Michael, I'm sorry.
Okay, so that's only in the case where he warned her, and there's two witnesses. We're talking
Well, we don't know.
Post Beis Hamikdash.
Post
No,
Beis Hamikdash,
but
no Beis Hamikdash.
Like today, there's no Beis Hamikdash. If he warned her, and there's two witnesses,
Two witnesses
Saw
to
her
what?
Alone with him.
to her being with Mr. Ploney.
Okay, he warned her, and there were witnesses or not witnesses to the warning?
Witnesses to Mr.
There were
Ploney.
two witnesses to the warning.
There's not two witnesses seeing her with Mr. Ploney?
I'm asking you.
both.
You're describing
Two
this.
separate sets of witnesses.
What's your case? How
No,
did
there
they
could-
show-
they could be the-
permutations here.
They could be the same witnesses. There are two positions in the Mishnah that will, right, two positions in the Mishnah that we learned that we've already forgotten about how many witnesses do you need for kinui.
Right, for the
Everyone agrees that for stira, meaning to say that she was secluded with this guy, everyone agrees that there have to be two witnesses. The question is, for the warning that he gives her, how many witnesses do there have to be? There's two opinions in the Mishnah. One opinion in the Mishnah is one witness is sufficient, even the husband.
Right.
Another opinion is no, you need
Need
two witnesses.
Maybe the husband,
Right?
maybe not. I
So
don't know.
today, without the Beis Hamikdash, okay? If you warn your wife, if you say, I don't want you to be secluded with Mr. Ploney, and there are two witnesses who see her secluded with Mr. Ploney, says the Gemara, maybe the halacha is like Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, who was the opinion in the Mishnah, who says one witness is sufficient, even the husband. So you now have a valid kinui, you have a valid stira,
You have no way of proving.
and you have no
Must you
way.
divorce your wife, or do you
You
have
must
option?
divorce her.
have
No,
to.
you must
Because
divorce her.
She can't be exonerated
You
anymore.
can't sleep with her.
You're
Yeah,
done.
but let's say the husband feels.
Doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't matter.
Because he warned her, and she was seen. So the only way that she can be exonerated is to go through this bitter waters thing. And we can't do that because there's no basis.
That's because she's confessing.
Still a
And he
human
can't
trait
withdraw.
For the husband to want to forgive,
It doesn't
Well,
matter.
well,
It's
can't.
he can't.
you can't.
He can't. In other words, once if he warns her, and then two people, and according to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, he warned her, one witness, even him, sufficient, and then two witnesses saw her alone with Plony, then the relationship is over.
So now
Because there is no way of determining
But the Sotah
whether or not she was actually involved in an adulterous
But the
relationship.
waters only worked if he was not
The waters only worked if he was
not unfaithful, whatever.
not unfaithful, correct.
So can he? Let's say this happens, and now he's supposed to be. Can he come along?
Are you
and say-
talking about post?
After Beis Hamikdash?
Okay, no
Come
Beis
along and
Hamikdash.
say,
Give me the scenario. No Beis Hamikdash. What
He
happens?
warns her. He's the only witness.
He warns her. Good.
Two people see her alone.
Okay, there.
She's supposedly forbidden to him.
Right.
He feels bad, so he comes along and he says, when I accused her, I myself, people in glass houses.
It doesn't
shoot
matter.
glass stones. Why?
It doesn't
It
matter.
wouldn't have worked. The Sotah waters wouldn't have worked.
Correct. The Sotah waters would not have worked.
And she would have been exonerated.
Well, wait a second. We don't know what would have happened. Okay, we haven't learned that part yet, right? We will learn that there are times where the Sotah water doesn't work, and if the Sotah water doesn't work for a particular reason, so then what happens? There are times where the Sotah water worked, but it was delayed, right? So these are all questions that we're going to have to ask here, right? I mean, I hear your premise,
Right.
but the bottom line is, what are we
Don't
saying
do
here?
it.
So the
Don't
bottom
ruin
line
it.
is we're worried that maybe Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda is a reliable position, and therefore you warning your wife is sufficient edus, and then two people see her alone with Plony, so that's sufficient to prohibit her to you for the rest
When you
of
divorce
her
her,
life.
Rabbi, the
Ketubah
Gemara
is
that
going-
we're
You divorce her
learning, is
without
this
the
Bet
ketubah.
HaMikdash
She
time or
gets
not Bet
nothing.
HaMikdash time?
She gets
If you
zero.
wanted to divorce her, you would warn her, and then have us be seen alone with two men. Then you
No. You could warn her, but if a woman, I mean, what Ron is asking is, isn't this process open to?
Manipulation by the husband.
Isn't this process open to some shady dealings?
Yeah.
Especially
In other words,
if he's the only
let's
witness.
say
He's
that
the only witness to warn
right,
her.
let's
She
say
said, "Oh, I
that
warned
let's
her."
say that the husband wants to get rid of his wife. He wants to divorce his wife. So we mentioned it last week. There are reasons why you can divorce your wife. Beis Shammai is more stringent, Beis Hillel more lenient. But let's say he wants to divorce his wife, and he's got a reason, but he doesn't want to pay her the ksuba.
Right.
So what will he do?
Wait until two
He'll
witnesses
warn her.
Wait until two witnesses see her alone with whoever Plony is.
Right, and then he'll say,
And then he'll show up and say, before then I warned her, I'm the only witness, I saw her, she's forbidden to me, she gets nothing.
Right.
I have a question.
do that.
The Gemara is now.
But what? In other words, he can do that, and yes, he might be a sleazy guy, but what has she done wrong?
She was alone with
She was alone with Plony. In other words, when he warned her, he didn't warn her.
He didn't warn her.
I'm saying a woman doesn't start out by being secluded with Plony, right? The reason the husband is suspicious is because he sees her talking to Plony.
That's not what Ron's
He's
saying.
No, mine is just a simple setup.
So
I
what
don't
I'm
wanna
what
pay
I'm
her the
saying what I'm
200
saying is
or
yes,
whatever.
But then
Enachinami,
they will
it's
say what the
true.
Kuba says.
What Ron is saying is
I
true,
understand.
namely that yes, he could. This could be a setup to get to divorce her without paying the ksuba, but it's not like she still did something wrong. In other words, she still did something wrong. She was still secluded with the man, and she's not allowed to be secluded with the man. Whether she committed adultery or didn't commit adultery, we don't know. And we have no way of knowing.
Now, of course, you could talk about paying off the agent.
She went through the whole thing and only worked in the business.
If the husband really wants to get
All right, so
But then you become a zombie.
right, so Rob has
What happens if they're
So Rob is saying right. So Rob is
he really
saying
wants to get
What
rid of
does
it.
that mean?
right. Rob is saying you pay off the Adim if you pay off. Now remember, Bezdin had to, it wasn't the fact just any two guys showed up in court and gave Eidos, and Bezdin said, "Oh, those two guys again." No, right? In other words, Bezdin had an obligation to literally vet the Eidim to make sure that they were believable, that they're reliable witnesses, and that they're believable, and that they could indeed have seen this. In other words, they say, "Yeah, we saw her go into the hotel room together with." Well, where were you standing? And what room did they go into? And who went in first? And so Bezdin is going to ask these questions to try to establish the veracity of the Eidim. Now, is it possible to fool Bezdin?
Yes.
Right? Theoretically, it's possible to fool Bezdin, right? One believes that theoretically it's possible to fool Bezdin. So what do we rely on in such a case? How can we have a system like this? Well, look, the system, I don't know that there's any judicial system where it's impossible to fool,
It's not.
right? You might have to be somewhat sophisticated to do it, but you could probably do it. So even in our system, it's possible for the witnesses to have their stories so airtight that Bezdin can't shake them in any way. And indeed, they were paid off, and this whole effort was a way of the husband divorcing his wife without paying the ksuba. Okay, so what do we rely on under such a circumstance?
Hashem, yeah.
The bottom line is we have a Supreme Court of one. Right? That we have a Supreme Court of one that remembers what he was doing 25 years ago. We have a Supreme Court of one, and that Supreme Court of one ultimately sets things right. In other words, even if a Bezdin down here makes a mistake, Kadosh Baruch Hu ultimately sets things right. So that's you want to be a paid-off witness under those circumstances, knowing that maybe I'll get to put in the bank today, but who knows what's going to happen tomorrow, right? Okay.
They're going the witness protection program.
Right. So anyway, so according to this opinion of Rabbi Chanina, a man should not warn his wife today, right? He should not do that. Let's go a little bit further in the Gemara at the bottom of 2b5. Right, what does the Gemara say? So the Gemara says, excuse me. And she will be forbidden to him. Iluya isura de laolam, a perpetual, eternal prohibition. So Amar Reish Lakish. Reish Lakish says, Ma lashon kinui. Reish Lakish says we are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines up from the bottom of the
What do you have
page.
to say to one?
What?
Like magic
No,
words?
not what does he have to say to warn her, but what does the word kinui mean? Before, Marco said that the word kinui means jealous,
Jealousy.
right? right? God is referred to as a kel kana, an angry, a jealous God, right? So ma lashon kinui. So says the Gemara, it was used because what happened, right? This whole incident is davar hamatil kina beina levein acherim. In other words, why is the warning called kinui? Because when he warns her, as a result of him warning her, he is going to be creating animosity between her and other people. What do you mean he's going to be creating animosity between her and other people? Because what is she going to do? Right? If a woman is warned by her husband not to be together with Ploni, and she knows the result of being together with Ploni is that in the days of the Beis Hamikdash she's going to have to go through this whole Sotah thing, or today she's going to lose her ksuba, she's going to make sure not only not to be together with Ploni, but she's not going to be together with anybody else. So everybody is going to suddenly see her as antisocial. So the warning that the husband gives the wife is going to create kina, it's going to create discomfort, hostility, anger, beina levein acherim, between her and other people. Other people
only
might...
other males, by the way. It's
What?
not other females. Only other males.
Well, only other males, but to the extent that the male and the female are together, maybe she won't...
Well, she's
gonna,
not alone.
No, but she's going to go above and beyond. She's going to, she's going to be very careful. She's going to be very careful. It's like the guy whose wife catches him texting texting another woman, right? And confronts him. And what does he say to her? He says, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm never going to do it again. Ever blah blah blah." And for the next 6 months, he doesn't even text anyone on his phone because he's worried that maybe I'll slip up and I'll text her. And then after 6 months, or maybe he's not as careful, right? So the idea here is that this woman is going to put herself in basically isolation because she doesn't want to take the chance of being caught with another man, right? Either the man that he warned her against, or she doesn't want to go down that road with anyone. So she will become a recluse, and that will, people won't understand why, because remember, we're following Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda's opinion, where he's the only one who knows, right? He's the only one who knows that he warned her. And I mean, if there are two witnesses to the warning, then people are going to know why she's become a recluse, right? But here, there's nobody really knows the reason. And when somebody becomes antisocial, and you don't know the reason why the person is antisocial, so what happens? You get offended. You know what? They don't like me. Right? You get angry, you get ticked off at them, right? So what the Gemara is saying here is that it's the word which is used is kinui because it's hamatil kina beina levein acherim. Not kina in the sense of jealousy, but kina here in the sense of anger. Alma ksavar, according to this opinion, it must be that Reish Lakish holds kinui al pe atzmo, right? That kinui al pe atzmo is sufficient because the Kuli Alma lo yade dekanela, because nobody else knows that what? Nobody else knows that he warned her. Okay. Va'amre, and some say, my dekama deka badla va'asu lema'ave kina bahada. That what is going to happen? That there's going to be kina between him and her. Right? Because we see Barav Yemar, Barav Shalmei, Mishmei da Abaye Amar, Davar Hamatil Kina Beino Levena. Between the two of them. Alma Ksavar Kinui Alpi Shnayim Edim, right? That it has to be what? Kinui Alpi Shnayim Edim. V'kule Alma Yode Dekanile. And everybody knows. If you have two witnesses, everybody knows that you warned her. So everybody knows that you warned her. So they're going to understand why she's not, why she's become a recluse. But it's nevertheless going to be an indication of jealousy or anger between the two of him. V'ihu have da'asi lema'ave kina bahada. And what's going to happen? There's going to be this kina between them. Alma kasavre. Therefore, Gimel Amid Aleph, we hold the asar lekanos, that you are not allowed to warn your wife these days. Since there is an interpretation of kinui where it is anger between other people and her,
Right.
that is based on the possibility that Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda is correct,
Right.
that even
Only a simple
Al Pi Atzmo is a valid kinui, and therefore today you have to be careful not to do it.
Is that the final? That's final?
No, we're gonna see an opinion. There's another opinion which we're not gonna see tonight, but another opinion says it's permissible to do kinui to your wife. Right? There is a position that says permissible to do kinui to you. So by the way, so what are you supposed to do? if your wife is
You don't have to be so specific.
right, if your wife is together with Plony, you see her talking to Plony, and she's mentioning Plony at the dinner table, and she's calling Plony on the phone, and she's texting Plony, and all of these things. You know, she's got a WhatsApp group with Plony. So right, so what are you supposed to do? Right,
Shoot Plony.
right, what are you supposed to do? You're not supposed to warn her. You can't expect her to be
Warn Plony.
faithful to you. So the answer is, according to the opinion that says you shouldn't warn her because she could become prohibited to you forever. So what should you do?
Could you question her?
What?
Instead of warning her, could you question her? Why are you spending so much time?
Of course you can do that.
No, the question is not a warning. But
Right.
but
It
it's
implies a
it's an implied warning, exactly.
What is she going to say when you ask her why she's spending so much time with Plony?
I don't know.
Hey, he's a nice guy. You know, he knows my bubby.
Yeah, I don't
you
think
know.
he's such a nice guy.
Right, you know, whatever it is. In other words,
I don't think he's such a nice
right, the
guy.
husband,
Maybe you should have different friends.
right, unless he is actually is mekana her, right, then there's no danger to her, right? Unless he's actually mekana her,
Yeah.
she could even if he's not mekana her, she could be alone with Plony.
Right.
So the only way he can, quote, protect himself from her being alone with Plony is to be mekana her. If he says to her, I don't think you should be with Plony, he's not such a nice guy, I'm a little bit worried about this relationship, where it's going, blah, blah, blah. That's not kinui.
It's not right.
Not
But
kinui.
it also sends a warning. It's in a way, it sends.
Sends a warning, what kind of warning does it send?
Maybe you should.
That you're
spend
getting
too much
closer
time
to
with
me,
him, You're getting closer
whatever
to
band
Illinois, you know.
Getting closer to what? You're getting closer to losing your ksuba? I mean, what is he saying to
Based
her?
on Mikdash time, he's getting closer to saying,
What if
hey.
he said?
Okay, that's the base of English. We're talking about post base of English. What?
Now,
I would hate to
Right,
find
there's a lot
out
of ways to
everything that's
say it.
going on with Paul. It would really make me angry.
right.
So
The
she's,
ways of saying it, that,
so what, so,
but
he's-
Well,
How
how
much
much
past
further
the
away
days
is
of the
that?
base of Mikdash?
Just
You
as
say,
a red
by the
threat.
way,
Do
You're not
not
gonna
see
die.
close
You
goes
lose
too
some
far,
money.
you can lose your
How much
ksuba,
further away?
that, it's not a kinui at all. In the days of the base of Mikdash, it has no effect. If you say to her, it's really bothering me that you're talking so much to Plony, don't you get the message? Don't you hear what I'm saying to you? As long as you're not mekana her with the language that you have to be mekana her, it's irrelevant. You can tell her you're upset from now until Thursday, it's irrelevant. Doesn't make a difference. Right? And if she goes ahead, and let's say she goes ahead and is alone with this guy. You told her it's not making me happy. You told her I'm really upset about it. You told her all these things, and she's alone with this guy.
she's alive.
You can divorce her?
You can't, well, that's,
You can divorce her, you don't have to warn her to
oh,
divorce
that's a
her.
machlokes. Remember that, we learned that last week, that's a machlokes.
If there's two witnesses that see her alone with him, you don't have grounds, forget about a warning.
You don't have grounds to divorce. Well, it depends. According to Beis Hillel, you do have grounds to divorce her. Because remember, we learned according to Beis Hillel, you can divorce her
Right.
even if she burns the toast.
Right.
Right? If she burns the toast, you can divorce her. So that's according
Who are we
to,
passing?
right? No, so I'm saying according to Beis Hillel, you can divorce her. According to Beis Shammai, you can't divorce her unless she is guilty of adultery. And because she's secluded with this man, we
That's not
don't
proof.
we don't know that she was guilty of adultery.
But what would a Beis Din do today? Would they divorce her? Would they grant that divorce or not?
If you
If
have to wait, if you have to wait, then yes.
If you have your two in.
If you
you're
have
saying
the 20,
today,
you have to have 20.
he was
After the Beis Hamikdash, if you...
no. So today, no. So this is what the Gemara is saying.
Right.
Lahalacha, we don't paskin like Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda. You would need to have two witnesses to the kina.
To the king, okay.
Right? If you had two witnesses to the kina, and then let's say that a guy really, about tshuva, learned through the Gemara and Sotah, and then he thought that maybe his wife was getting too friendly with somebody, and he got called over two friends, and he said, and he was makana her with this language, I don't want to, you're not allowed to be alone with Plony, and there were two friends, right, two witnesses who heard it, and then she went ahead and was alone with Plony, and there were two witnesses who saw her. Could be the same two witnesses, could be two different witnesses.
He would have to
So then he
divorce
would
her.
have to divorce her, right? Then he would have to divorce her, right? Now, if under those circumstances, he might have to pay her ksuba, because there's no proof that she committed adultery. In other words, we say he has to divorce her because he can't sleep with
might
her.
have.
He can't sleep with her. He can't sleep with her because there's no way of resolving the suffix. So since we can't resolve the suffix, we are, we're stringent. We can't resolve the suffix,
That
so they
doesn't mean
can't.
she lost her.
It doesn't, but it doesn't mean that she committed adultery.
Unless she admits
Right.
to it.
What?
Unless she admits to it.
Right.
Unless she admits to it, correct. Unless she admits to it. If she admits to it, then she loses her ksuba. If she doesn't admit to it, if she doesn't admit to it, she doesn't lose her ksuba.
He say, she say.
Okay, let's go back to
Back to page.
That's interesting.
right back to page 2. It's going to get even better, and we're just at the beginning of this. Okay.
Yeah, it's fine,
Where are we going now?
2A2?
2A1, 2A2. I'm sorry, 2A2, 2A2. Okay, so we're continuing with the Gemara. Amar Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak, where if you look at the beginning of the line, there's a little zayin,
Yeah.
little vav. It's either a vav or a zayin. I can't tell. A little vav with parentheses there at the beginning of the line. So Amar Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak ki have patach Reish Lakish b'Sotah. When Reish Lakish began learning the Gemara of Sotah, Amar Hachi, he used to begin by saying the following.
The Gemara didn't exist yet, so I'm a little confused at referencing learning the Gemara. I mean,
You know what? You're right. You're right. I guess that was probably a slip of my tongue. I guess when he was learning the sugya, the matter of Sotah, when he was teaching the matter of Sotah from Chumash. Okay, good point. Okay,
So
thank you.
everything is post Beit HaMikdash?
Well, I mean, some of the halachos we're going to be learning a lot of halachos that applied in the Beis Hamikdash. So we just took a detour to post Beis Hamikdash. All right. So Norman, point well taken. All right. So when Reish Lakish was discussing the matter of Sotah, Amar Hachi, he used to begin his discussion by making the following statement. Ein mizavgin lo la'odam isha ela lefi ma'asav. A woman, a match is not made between a woman and a man other than according to the man's actions. What does that mean? A match is not made between a woman and a man other than according to the man's actions. Basically, you get what you deserve. Right? Right? That's what Reish Lakish is saying. You get what you deserve because the zivug, right? The zivug, right? When the zivug is made, it is made. In other words, you can, a guy's complaining. My wife is nudging me. She's doing this, right? So Reish Lakish would say, it's because you deserve it. It's because your masim, your actions are not so great, right? So if your actions are not so great, so you're gonna get there's gonna be a zivug. There's gonna be a match made with the woman whose actions are not so great, right? Because it's based on your actions. That's the zivug. Okay. I don't know if class cleared out after he said that or not. I'm not sure, but that's what he said.
Is that sort of like a hint to women that they should be, on the up and up and modest and righteous and everything else, because then that way they're gonna get someone like themselves married?
It could be, or it could be that now, we're talking about Sotah, we're talking about a woman who's behaving in not such a great way. So it could be that what Reish Lakish is saying is, she's behaving in not such a great way because you're not any better, right? Right. Yeah, you could take the reverse of it. I think so. It's not what Reish Lakish said. Probably Mrs. Reish Lakish said that, right? Right. It's not what Reish Lakish said, right? I wonder what Mrs. Reish Lakish thought of.
I didn't deserve you.
Right. Okay. How do we know? What did Reish Lakish bring as a proof to his position that a man only gets a shidduch based on his maasim? Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Kilo yanuach shevet haresha al gorel hatzadikim. Right, the scepter of the wicked will not rest in the fate of the righteous. In other words, if you're if you're a tzaddik, you're not going to get a woman who's a rasha, and if you're a rasha, you're not going to get a woman who's a tzaddik. If you're a rasha, you're going to get a woman who's a rasha. If you're a tzaddik, you're going to get a woman who's a tzaddik.
He doesn't hold that it's predetermined?
What?
He doesn't hold.
Oh, hold on. Oh, good question. Hal's asking you a very good question. All right, very good question. Hang on a second. So that's one statement. We have the statement of Reish Lakish. All right. Amar Rabba Bar Bar Chana. So now we have another statement, a statement by Rabba Bar Bar Chana. Amar Rabbi Yochanan, in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. V'kashin lizavgan kikriyas yamsuf. What do we say? That Kadosh Baruch Hu making a shidduch is as difficult as kriyas yamsuf. Is difficult as splitting the sea. Now, wait a
I
second.
thought that wasn't so difficult.
Right? Is anything difficult? Right? Is anything difficult for God? Right? Is anything difficult for God? Obviously, nothing is difficult for God. So what? Right? So what does it mean when it says that making a shidduch? In other words, making a shidduch that works is kasher kriyas yamsuf. It's as hard as kriyas yamsuf. What does that mean? So the Meforshim have a number of interesting explanations of what it means that it is that making a shidduch is as hard as kriyas yamsuf, and I happen to have a list of them. Right. What does it mean? Right. What are the different opinions as to what does it mean that making a shidduch is as hard as kriyas yamsuf? Okay. So here we go. I'm gonna read some of them to you. Okay. So one opinion is that Kriyas Yamsuf was a mixture of Midas Hadin and Midas Harachamim. Right? It was Midas Hadin. It was the God's attribute of justice when it came to punishing the Egyptians,
Right.
and it was Midas Harachamim. It was God's attribute of mercy to save Bnei Yisrael, and both of them occurred simultaneously, right? In order to have a successful shidduch, you need to be able to have Midas Hadin and Midas Harachamim together. What does it mean? You need to be able to have Midas Hadin and Midas Harachamim together. You need to look at yourself through Midas Hadin, and you need to look at your spouse through Midas Harachamim. What does that mean? In other words,
So, just in terms of
Should
see
judge
the
yourself
water,
harshly.
I'm just focused on how it was a fitting punishment for the Egyptians at the same time that it was fitting for.
not say it was. In other words, not that it was
No,
the same
use
thing
of
was.
water. In other words, what was the connection that
So
using
this,
water that
so
they drowned
all right,
in water?
we'll talk about that. But this opinion is not referencing that. This opinion is referencing Kriyas Yamsuf in the more general sense of this episode where Bnei Yisrael were saved as they passed through the Yamsuf, and the Egyptians were killed as they passed through the Yamsuf, is an indication of Hashem's Midas Hadin and Midas Harachamim. In order for a shidduch to be successful, it has to be between people who have the ability to use Midas Hadin when they look at themselves, and Midas Hadin when they look at their spouse. Midas Harachamim when they look at their spouse. Meaning, you look at yourself and you need to hold yourself, to a high standard. And yet when you look at your spouse, you need to be able to give your spouse the benefit of the doubt. Right? Midas Hadin, strict justice when you look at yourself. Midas Harachamim when you look at your spouse. That's not an easy combination to find.
Now you tell me.
Right. That's Larry. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Right. That's not an easy combination to find.
You think it's going to get better.
Right. That's not an easy combination to find, and that's why it says. That's why the Gemara tells us that making a good shidduch is as difficult as Kriyas Yamsuf, meaning as difficult as HaKadosh Baruch Hu applying both Midas Hadin and Midas Harachamim simultaneously. Okay, one interpretation. I'll give you a second interpretation, okay? The second interpretation, what happened in Kriyas Yamsuf? What happened in Kriyas Yamsuf was the Jews passed by on this dry land, the Egyptians got drowned, and what happened after the Egyptians were drowned?
The Jews celebrated.
Well, the Jews celebrated, but what happened to the Yamsuf?
Went back to normal.
Went back to normal.
Right.
Right, the Yamsuf went back to normal. That in order for a shidduch to be successful, you have to know that there are going to be moments, right?
Turbulence.
Right, moments of turbulence,
You gotta
right?
get over it.
Right, moments where
behind
you
it.
get angry with each other, moments where there are difficult
She'll never
times,
get angry with
right?
you.
And what happens afterwards?
You have to forgive
Afterwards, the relationship is restored to its tranquil base, right? To the tranquility that existed before. There's going to be arguments. There's going to be divisiveness. There's going to be disagreements. All right, that's part and parcel of taking two people and putting them together. But we have to be like, in order for the shidduch to be successful, we have to have the attribute of the Yamsuf, which is that after it's all over, the Yamsuf went back to its tranquil nature, back to how it was, right? That you don't carry the argument or the divisiveness or the upset. You don't carry it with you, but you're able to get back to where it was. You're able to get back to where it was. Okay, second, I'll give you one more. One more. This is a very good one. Okay, one more is when you look at water, right? Imagine trying to separate water, right? When you're trying to separate water, right? What is the nature of water? The nature of water is you push away. What does it do? But it pushes back, right? So if you're going to keep the water separate, what do you have to do? You have to constantly work at you can't separate it and then just like take your go somewhere else, because the minute you go somewhere else, the minute you stop separating, what's going to happen? The water is going to rush back. So if you want a shidduch to be successful, it has to be between two people who understand that they have to work like Hashem worked for Kriyas Yamsuf. In other words, it has to be constant effort at making this relationship work. It has to over and over and over again in order to make this relationship work. So that's why, in other words, when it says Kasha Zivugim Kriyas Yamsuf, it means it's hard to find Zivugim that will manifest the same attributes that we saw at Kriyas Yamsuf in order to be successful Zivugim. That's the idea behind it. Okay. Enough said about that. Let's look at the next thing. Right, the next thing in the Gemara is going. At first, the Gemara brings proof. How do we know that it's as difficult to make zivugim as Kriyas Yamsuf? Shenemar, as the pasuk says, Elokim Moshiv Yechidim Beisa. God brings individuals into the house. Motzi asirim bekusharos, and he takes those who are imprisoned and releases them, right? So that's the idea. That's what happened at Kriyas Yamsuf, right? Those took, right? So the Gemara now asks a question. The Gemara says, "Ini, is this really true?" Now we don't know to which statement this question applies, right? We have two possible statements. One possible statement is that a man gets what he deserves. That's one possible statement. The other possible statement is that says difficult as Kriyas Yamsuf. Says the Gemara, Ini, is this really true? Whichever one it's referring to, we'll have to look at both of them. V'ha'amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, Arba'im Yom Kodem Yitziras Avlad, says how? 40 days before the fetus is formed. 40 days before the fetus is formed, Basko Yotzeis Ve'omeres, a voice comes out of Shamayim and says, Bas Ploni Leploni, the daughter of so-and-so is to so-and-so. Bayis Ploni Leploni, the house of so-and-so is to so-and-so. Sadeh Ploni Leploni, this particular, in other words, everything is preordained. Who you're going to marry is preordained, where you're going to live is preordained, and what you're going to do for a parnasa is preordained. It's an interesting, right? It's an interesting order. It's an interesting order. Who you're going to marry is preordained, where you're going to live is preordained, and what you're going to do for parnasa.
What does it say? Where you're going to live? Just like
Bias.
Bias.
Right.
Okay.
You know, what house, right? Where are you going to live?
house.
What
Which
house?
house
What
for
neighborhood? What house? You know,
Like
and
Bologna.
Sotah, right? And Sotah is, you know, what's your parnassa going to be? So it's interesting because the Gemara says, what's the proper order in which to get married? The proper order in which to get married is
Parnassa first.
first a house.
Then that, right, the house.
First the house, or first parnassa. I guess you can't have a first parnassa, then a house, and then you get married. Right here, the order is what? Married,
Right.
then a house, and then parnassa. Why? Because not everybody can afford to have parnassa and then a house before you get married. Somebody's poor; he's never going to have parnassa and a house before he gets married. He should get married anyway. In other words, that, you know, right at the beginning. So how is this akasha? Right? This principle that Hal was referring to earlier, namely that who you're going to marry is bashert, right? It's preordained. Who you're going to marry is preordained. How does that work with what we said earlier? Because what did we say earlier?
You
We
get
said
what you deserve.
that you get what you deserve,
You can go up or down.
right? How can you get what you deserve if it's preordained?
You go up or
Well,
down.
because,
What do you mean you go up or down? What does that mean?
And I remember reading once that so this is who you're destined to marry. But if you're more of a tzaddik, so then you may merit somebody else.
Then you
They
get
may
better
get-
choice.
Or
You
you
may
both
get a
better
better
people,
choice,
you're both better
It's
people.
an
or
upgrade.
if
It's an
the other
upgrade.
way, you may get a lesser choice.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
upgrade
what?
is
All right.
six.
So Hal is giving one explanation here. What is the explanation? The explanation is this is the woman whom you were destined to marry, right? Mrs. A. She's the woman. I'm sorry, Miss A. She's the woman you were destined to marry, right? She's the woman you were destined to marry. Now, right now,
That was good.
what happens if you become a real tzaddik, and maybe she's not such a tzaddikess, so then you won't marry her. You'll have upgraded yourself to a real tzaddikess. On the other hand,
Shemayim didn't know that.
right? On the other hand,
She
right?
received it?
On the other hand, if you turn out to be a Russia
Right.
and she's not a Russia, so you won't wind up marrying her. You wind up marrying a Russia. So asks Ron, wait a second. Kadosh Baruch Hu didn't know whether you were going to be a tzaddik or a Russia. Kadosh Baruch Hu didn't know that in advance. So the answer is no. He didn't know that in advance. What do you mean he didn't know that in advance? Kadosh Baruch Hu doesn't know whether you're going to be a Rasha or a tzaddik, so we have an opinion, right? What do we say? Hakol bidei shamayim,
Chutz mirat shema.
chutz miyirat shamayim, right? Hakol bidei shamayim, chutz miyirat shamayim, meaning that everything is preordained except yirat shamayim. You have bechira chavshis, right? You have free choice. Yirat shamayim, right? That is not preordained. Whether you're going to be a tzaddik or whether you're going to be a Rasha is not preordained. And since that's not preordained, when this Baskol came out and said so-and-so to so-and-so, what does that mean? It means that this is the person that you were preordained to marry, right? Unless you change. Right? This is the person you were preordained to marry unless you change.
Or you
Right.
could say it is known, but Hashem won't punish you for what happens later. Like when the Malach, when Abraham was sending Yishmael away, so the Malachim said punish him because of what he's going to do. Hashem said, no, I don't punish for what they're going to do. I only punish.
Right? So every fetus is a tzaddik. Right? But not every person winds up marrying a tzaddikas. Right? And not every person turns out to be a tzaddik. Okay, so if we say that a guy
Doesn't mean I'm a tzaddik.
gets to marry someone who he deserves by his actions, so how could this be? Because we say here that it's preordained. Say here that it's preordained. So how gave what answer? If we say that it's coming to contradict the second part, which is namely, why are you saying that that a shidduch is as difficult as Kriyas Yamsuf? It's preordained. What could be so hard? It's already preordained, right? What's so hard about that? Right? Tell me it's as difficult as Kriyas Yamsuf. So the Gemara says, Lo kashya, this is not a problem. Ha bezivug rishon, ha bezivug sheni. All right? 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 What are we talking about? What are we talking about? One is bezivug rishon, and one is bezivug sheni. What does that mean? Which one is which?
That's a good question.
Which one is which?
Rabbi Yom is the first one.
Right, Zivug Rishon, that is what was decreed for the first person you're supposed to marry. Right? In other words, your first marriage, so that's the Bashert one. All right? Zivug Sheni is based on your Maasim. Right? Zivug Sheni is based on your Maasim. And by then HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows.
The fact that there is a zivug sheni means you messed up with zivug.
Is the Gemara saying you're supposed to
Not
abandon one
necessarily.
wife?
Not necessarily. Get better.
She could die.
Oh,
Is the
that's
Gemara
true.
saying you're
Okay.
supposed to abandon one
I was
wife?
thinking divorce.
Maybe you divorce her for a good reason.
Right.
Right? Not every divorce is necessarily a bad thing. In other words, tongue in cheek, when we say that a Kadosh Baruch Hu created the refuah before he created the makkah, there are times where divorce is warranted according to halacha, right? Where you should be divorced, right? There are.
Yeah, but usually there's a fault involved in it.
Or it could be the woman's fault.
Oh,
Could not be. I mean, it could be the woman's fault, not the
It's a
guy's fault.
That's all.
Right? It could be the woman's fault, not the guy's fault. So what does Gemara? So what does Gemara saying? The Gemara is saying. The Gemara is saying one case is zivug risha, and the other case is zivug sheni. Right? One case is where you your first zivug, your first match, your first marriage is to someone whom was preordained to you. Right? The second zivug was to someone who you deserve. Another way of interpreting this, and we'll stop with this, is Haba Zivug Rishon, Haba Zivug Sheni means there is a woman who was predestined for you. Doesn't necessarily mean you'll marry her. In other words, there was a woman who was predestined to you, Arbaim Yom Kodem Yitziras Avlad, 40 days before the fetus was formed, there was a baskol that came out and said Ploni to Ploni. Right? And indeed, that's your zivug rishon, that bashert woman. It doesn't mean you're going to marry your bashert woman. In other words, you might wind up marrying someone who's not your bashert woman. Why would you wind up marrying your bashert woman? So that's not marrying your bashert woman. So that's what Hal said.
So then you're
Right.
saying the second one is the bashir?
Maybe.
No, not the second. No, the second one is based on your masim. In other words, but we're not referring to two marriages. Whereas the first pshat is looking at two marriages. Right? The second shot is only looking at one marriage,
But they're two different women.
but two different women. And right, in other words, you were predestined to marry this woman, but guess what? You didn't marry her, so you wound up with what's called a zivug sheni. It's not a second marriage; it's a second partner, right? Because you didn't marry the first partner, right? So the first partner was preordained. The second partner, the one you really married, that was based on your maasim, that was based on kashik.
You were not
those
zoche to the
things.
first one.
All right, see you all next week.
That's the point.